Five in the Dugout is sponsored by Woods Basement Systems.
Mike, let's begin with one of the big stories from today and the biggest story of the spring. Victor Scott, another home run. He's hitting, I guess, 371 as we speak. This kid is just grabbing that center field spot, isn't he?
He really is, Frank, but I'll remind you, he was doing the same thing in the spring last year, and then when the season started, things started to tail off. But I think this is a different Victor Scott with regard to preparation and understanding what the big leagues is all about. It's real, and the competition level is really stepping up. Michael Ciani starting to swing the bat a little bit better, and you have some competition for that other infield spot between Barrero and also Jose Fermin, and then there's Luke and Baker. So there's a lot going on inside of 10 games in the spring.
So it would have to be something pretty dramatic for Scott to lose it in the 11th hour to Ciani. I know there's about a week and a half left, but it's his spot to lose as we speak?
You know, you have to think about last year. You know, Ciani was the incumbent until he got hurt. Now, how often do you lose your job when you get hurt? So I think they're going to lean towards Ciani, but Victor Scott's going to make it very difficult for them not to bring him to St. Louis, not to put him in the lineup, because he can do a lot of things. You mentioned the home run today. He had another hit, didn't steal a base, played some very solid defense, but overall, I think it's really a coin flip. And I really think it has a lot to do who's pitching that day as well.
Now, Mike, can you see a scenario where they keep both on the roster? I don't think that would make roster sense. What are you saying?
Well, I think it would, because of the fact that you would insert one of those guys in the lineup late in the ball game for defensive reasons if you take Jordan Walker out. So I think that's more in play than you would think. So that's the way I would look at it. And then you also have Barrero, who can play some outfield, but he's been better suited in the infield.
Okay, so what do you do with the guy with 4 homers in the spring with an 1,100 OPS named Luken Baker?
That's the wild card. You know, he does have power. He does hit lefties well. He's had a very good spring, but I think the fact that he's limited with regard to what you can use him for, he's basically going to have to be a pinch hitter late in the ballgame. There's not going to be enough at bats as a first baseman. There may not be enough at bats as a designated hitter. So he may be the odd man out, but he does possess something the Cardinals haven't had off the bench in a while, and that is power.
And who scares you off the Cardinal bench from the right side if Baker's not there?
You don't have anyone that scares you. That's the issue. But the other issue is, when you look at this ball club, how many people would you pinch hit for in that batting order? I mean, it's not like you have somebody who's really that feeble where they can't put a ball in play in most cases. So that's the other issue. How many times, especially with the designated hitter these days, and when you look at this ball club, they don't really have an offensive person that isn't able to produce on a regular basis. Now, if you want to pinch hit Ciani or someone like that, I understand, but I don't know if that's going to be something you're going to see on a regular basis.
All right, Jordan Walker had a double today, making some progress. Looks like he's completely healthy now, too. What are you saying?
Well, yeah, he's healthy. He's ready to go. The double today was impressive and certainly important for him. He's still feeling his way through it. He needs as many at-bats as he can get leading into the opening day of the season.
I get the impression after sitting down John Mozeliak last week in Jupiter that it is going to be the scenario we want for Jordan Walker, that he's going to get 550 at-bats. They're just going to let him go.
Oh, you have to. I mean, you've made a significant investment in him. First of all, as a first-round pick, you've moved people around so he would have a spot. A guy who has a physical talent, and I think the mental acumen as well, it's just all got to come together at the same time. And once it does, we have a very special player. We've never had a player this size that ever put on a Cardinal uniform. Think about that, Frank. He's 6'6.5", he's 265, and it's all muscle. So if you can get those things channeled in the right direction, he can be a very productive player, and maybe he'll be that power hitter we've always wondered about. I don't know. I think he's still trying to put all that together.
All right, let's talk about the pitcher of the day, Eric Fedde. What did he do well, and what are you seeing there?
Eric Fedde just shows up, throws strikes. He doesn't throw that hard, but he throws hard enough to keep everyone honest. And he's had a very good, quiet spring. You can't overlook that. Now, does that translate into him being a regular season contributor? We'll have to wait and see. But I think he's a guy that you're certainly going to have to count on. After all, you traded for him thinking you can make a run with him. He's a reliable guy these days. He bet on himself a couple of years ago when he went to Korea. He's come back, and he's made himself a reputable player that can certainly fit in the rotation.
Do you think the decision is already made? Andre Palante is the fifth starter to start the season, and Michael McGreevy starts the season in Memphis?
I think Andre Palante is further up in the rotation than the fifth starter. I think Miles Michaelis is probably going to hold that down at this point. The McGreevy situation is a real head scratcher. You know, the problem is, Frank, you don't have enough. You have a lot of off days in April. So if you want to go to a 6-man rotation, you almost are going to an 8-day rotation where the fact that you won't have guys pitching on any sort of regularity. So that's going to be a real issue. You want to make sure McGreevy pitches. You want to make sure guys build up innings along the way. Now, can you piggyback him and another guy in one game? One guy has 5 innings, another guy has 4. You could, but you sacrifice your bullpen because that's one less pitcher you're going to have for the rest of the week.
And when do we get to the point where there's concern with Sonny Gray and not just, well, it's the spring and it means nothing?
I think we're at a point now where what can you do about it? I mean, this is your guy. This is the one you've invested in. Sonny Gray's earned the right to be in a position where he can figure it out on his own. Obviously, he's a very deep thinker with regard to his approach to the game. He knows Sonny Gray better than anyone else. So at this point, I'm not sure if you have many options. And as he said before, I've had some very good springs, and I wasn't very good during the regular season. I've had some very bad springs, and I found myself being pretty good that year. The concern I think a lot of people have is the velocity. He sits on 91, maybe 92. Guys are figuring out the sweeper a little bit better, so he's making in-game adjustments as well. I'm not going to really worry about Sonny Gray at this point because, A, it's nothing we can do about it. B, you have to trust a veteran here and see what he can come up with.